The office building was almost empty, its long glass corridors reflecting the cold white glow of overhead lights. It was well past midnight, the kind of hour when success felt heavy rather than satisfying. The CEO loosened his tie as he walked toward the elevator, his footsteps echoing in the silence. Another long day, another set of meetings, numbers, and decisions that affected thousands of lives, yet somehow left his own feeling strangely hollow. As he reached into his pocket for his phone, he felt it. A gentle tug. Startled, he stopped and looked down. A little girl stood beside him, no more than 6 or 7 years old. Her hair was messy, her dress thin and worn, clearly not meant for the cold night air. She clutched the edge of his coat with tiny fingers, as if letting go would cause her entire world to collapse. Her lips trembled before any sound came out. "Sir," she whispered. Her voice was so soft he almost missed it. The CEO crouched down instinctively, surprised by his own reaction. He was used to commanding rooms, negotiating deals, making people nervous with a single look, but this child's eyes held a fear that cut straight through him. "My mom." She swallowed hard, tears gathering. "She isn't waking up." For a moment, the world seemed to stop. The hum of the lights, the distant traffic outside, even the stress in his chest faded away. All he could see was the terror in her face. This was not a story. This was not charity. This was urgent, raw, and real. "Where is your father?" he asked gently. She shook her head. "It's just us." Her hands were cold. He noticed how thin her arms were, how tired her eyes looked, as if fear had been her companion for far too long. Questions raced through his mind. How had she gotten into this building? Why was she alone at this hour? But none of that mattered right now. "What's your name?" he asked. "Lena," she whispered. "Lena," he repeated softly, offering a small, reassuring smile. "You did the right thing by coming here." She looked confused. "I did." "Yes," he said. "You were very brave." That single word, brave, made her eyes overflow. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she nodded, her grip on his coat tightening. The CEO stood slowly, keeping his movements calm so as not to scare her. He took off his jacket and gently wrapped it around her shoulders. It was far too big, but she leaned into it like it was armor. "Can you show me where your mom is?" he asked. She hesitated, glancing down the dark hallway behind her. Then she looked back up at him, searching his face for certainty, for safety. He met her gaze and nodded once. "I'm not going anywhere," he said firmly. That was when the words came out of him. Words he had never planned to say, words that would change everything. "Take me to her." Lena turned and began walking, her small steps echoing through the quiet building. The CEO followed, his heart pounding harder than it ever had during any business deal. He didn't know it yet, but in that moment, following a frightened little girl down a silent hallway, his life had already taken a different path. The night air outside felt colder than before as they stepped out of the glass building. Lena walked quickly, her small hand wrapped tightly around the CEO's finger, as if afraid he might disappear if she let go. Streetlights flickered above them, casting long shadows on the cracked pavement. The city that glittered with wealth just blocks away now felt distant and unfamiliar. They reached an old apartment building wedged between two closed shops. The paint peeled from its walls, and the stairs smelled of dust and damp concrete. Lena didn't hesitate. She climbed the steps as if she had done this walk many times alone. "Up here," she whispered. The CEO followed, his polished shoes echoing loudly in the narrow stairwell. With every step, his chest grew tighter. He had signed million-dollar deals in luxury offices, but nothing prepared him for the quiet desperation of this place. Lena stopped at a door with a broken handle and pushed it open. Inside, the room was dim and cramped. A single bulb flickered weakly from the ceiling. There was no furniture except a small table, two mismatched chairs, and a thin mattress on the floor. On that mattress lay Lena's mother. She was completely still. "Mom," Lena called softly, rushing forward. She knelt beside her mother and gently shook her shoulder. "Mom, wake up. I brought help." The CEO froze in the doorway. The woman's face was pale, her breathing shallow. Her lips were dry, and dark circles surrounded her closed eyes. One look told him this wasn't sleep. This was exhaustion pushed far beyond its limit. He moved quickly, kneeling beside them. "Lena, sweetheart," Step back just a little, he said gently. She won't wake up, Lena sobbed. I tried everything. The CEO pulled out his phone and dialed emergency services, his voice calm but urgent as he explained the situation. As he spoke, he placed 2 fingers on the woman's wrist. Her pulse was weak but present. She's alive, he told Lena, meeting her eyes. I promise. Those words steadied her breathing, even as tears continued to fall. Minutes felt like hours. The CEO took off his shoes and jacket, covering the woman to keep her warm. He noticed empty medicine packets on the floor, overdue bills on the table, and a lunchbox with nothing inside. This wasn't just illness. It was poverty, neglect, and silent suffering. Sirens finally pierced the night. Paramedics rushed in, filling the tiny room with movement and light. They checked vital signs, lifted the woman onto a stretcher, and spoke in quiet, serious tones. She collapsed from extreme fatigue and untreated illness, one of them said. If help had come any later. The sentence was left unfinished. Lena grabbed the CEO's hand. Is my mommy going to die? He knelt down so they were eye to eye. No, he said firmly. She's going to the hospital, and she's going to get better. As they carried her mother out, Lena followed closely, her face pale but determined. The CEO walked beside her, never letting go of her hand. At the hospital, bright lights replaced the darkness of the apartment. Nurses rushed the woman away while a doctor explained she was severely overworked, malnourished, and had ignored her illness because she couldn't afford to stop working. The CEO listened in silence. For the first time in years, his wealth felt less like success and more like responsibility. As Lena sat on a hospital chair, her feet dangling above the floor, she leaned against him, exhausted. You stayed, she whispered. Yes, he replied softly. And I'm not leaving. In that moment, surrounded by beeping machines and white walls, the CEO realized something undeniable. This wasn't just about saving a life. It was about seeing the lives people were forced to live when no one was watching. Morning sunlight streamed through the hospital window, soft and golden, pushing back the darkness of the night. The CEO sat in a chair beside Lena, who had fallen asleep against his arm. Her small breaths were steady now, no longer panicked. For the first time since they met, she looked like a child again, not a guardian forced to grow up too soon. A doctor approached quietly, clipboard in hand. She's stable, he said. Severe exhaustion, untreated infection, and long-term malnutrition. But you brought her in just in time. The CEO released a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding all night. He thanked the doctor, then glanced at Lena, brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. A few hours later, Lena's mother opened her eyes. Her gaze was unfocused at first, confusion clouding her face. Then she saw her daughter. Lena, she whispered weakly. Lena startled awake and bolted upright. Mom, she cried, rushing to her side. She grabbed her mother's hand, pressing it to her cheek as if to prove she was real. Tears filled the woman's eyes as she looked at the CEO standing quietly nearby. Who are you? He offered a gentle smile. Someone your daughter trusted. The woman tried to sit up, panic flashing across her face. I'm sorry, she said. I just needed to rest for a minute. I can't afford to miss work. You don't have to worry about that anymore, the CEO interrupted softly. Over the next few days, everything changed. The CEO paid for the woman's medical treatment in full. He arranged for proper nutrition, follow-up care, and a safe place for them to stay while she recovered. But more than money, he gave them time to heal, to breathe, to live without fear. When the mother learned what he had done, she broke down in tears. I didn't want to beg, she said. I just wanted to be strong for my daughter. You already were, he replied. Strength isn't suffering in silence. Sometimes it's accepting help. Weeks later, Lena walked into her new school holding her mother's hand. She wore a clean uniform, her backpack almost too big for her shoulders. But her smile was bright, fearless. The CEO watched from a distance, his heart full. He had set up a foundation quietly. No press, no announcements, to help families like Lena's. Single parents, exhausted workers, children forced to grow up too fast. He made sure his company policies changed too, offering paid medical leave and emergency support for employees who needed it most. The board questioned his decisions. He didn't explain. Some things didn't need justification. One afternoon, Lena visited his office again, this time by appointment. She handed him a folded piece of paper. It was a drawing. 3 stick figures stood beneath a bright sun. One was tall, one was small, and one lay in a bed with a big smile. Above them, in uneven letters, were the words, "Thank you for not walking away." The CEO felt his throat tighten. He pinned the drawing on his office wall, right where everyone could see it. From that day on, no matter how high he rose, he remembered the night a little girl whispered for help in a quiet hallway, and how saying, "Take me to her," became the most important decision of his life.